Welcome to the best hour of their day podcast with your hosts, Jason Fernandez
and me, Jason Ackerman. With more than 20 years in the business,
as both coaches and affiliate owners,
our passion is to help create world-class affiliates
and coaches by building
better
boxes.
Welcome to
The best hour of your day.
We're already going, right, Nate?
We are going, but we have
Okay.
to start the show at some point. So,
But let's talk about this. Biggest ever best hour of their day episode ever.
yeah, for sure.
Chris
Two-parter.
Intro. We had to break it into two parts.
Yep.
Both, I think it's number 1 and number 2.
Really?
Yeah, that's like, you remember when like a band in the 80s would release 2 albums and they would both.
Oh, yeah, right.
You were like the Beatles of CrossFit. And not just your age, but you were the Beatles, the original.
You know what's interesting about that time we did that podcast? Because that was a little over a year ago,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
when we were in Nashville, yeah.
Right? No, we did it at Mayhem.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it was,
the team in
March.
Nashville.
But
was March.
But you guys were on this run of doing Tia, Shane, Rich, all the other members at Mayhem, and then it's like I was the last one that you fit into the schedule.
No, we didn't get any of them actually. Like you were the top. You were the top
You
of the
were
playlist.
number 1 draft pick.
Seriously?
Yeah, we didn't. They were like, "Hey, do you guys want to interview Rich?" And I was like, "Who's that?"
Hey, who got
Stop.
drafted
Okay,
over
now I know.
Who got
Now I
drafted
know.
over MJ Fern?
Nobody.
I
Oh
thought-
no, Sam Bowie.
You were Sam Bowie.
Really?
Wait, no, you were MJ. You were MJ.
Sam Bowie was a flop. He was not Sam
You
Bowie.
were not the flop.
He was MJ.
You were the MJ
Yeah,
in that
really?
scenario.
Rich was Sam Bowie.
Yeah, Rich was Sam Bowie.
Yeah.
That's nice of you.
No,
No,
but,
that was a great.
but it was. I think it was an awesome episode because, like, everybody learned a lot. We got to talk about a lot of practical stuff, and which is what we want to talk about today as well. And that was the fun part about that whole thing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, they're like, yo, I learned so much from this episode, which is your passion, which is education, which we'll talk about as well. But that's why people love that episode. Like, they're just taking nuggets out of it nonstop.
But what was also cool about it is that we have this conversation. We talk about these unique ideas, and it piqued your curiosity. And then we went down onto the floor of Mayhem, and we put them into action.
Right.
And that's never been done in a podcast before. I thought that was brilliant.
First time ever.
It was genius, though. To I want to
That
try
was my
that.
idea. Yeah.
We are
My idea.
we are regularly referred to as brilliant men. So
And genius.
I'm so happy that all worked out.
But let's talk a little more about it because as we were saying, and maybe some of the people
I love that
watching.
Pat doesn't care at all.
No. Yeah. What are we doing?
Nobody knows.
Talking about the knowledge.
Just talking
Pat,
about
if
the
you
knowledge.
haven't already,
Sign up
free
for the
7
knowledge.
days of the knowledge, free T-shirt.
Yep.
If you sign up,
Here,
So wait, let's just clear one thing up. Do you know who my CrossFit crush is?
Pat.
is it
Barber.
Pat
It's
Barber?
not me.
Is it Pat Barber?
So
Oh,
my
yeah.
better half is right there.
I
So
hope-
she knows. My better half knows who my crush is.
Heidi, who is it?
It's my wife.
Hot.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hot.
This is awkward.
That makes
All
sense.
of a
Also my
sudden.
CrossFit
She knows, though. When we get together, she knows. We don't talk about it, but she
Dude,
knows.
it's fair. She's a great runner.
One of your kids is much
Coachable.
faster than the other 3 kids. Is
Bro,
that
don't
true?
change the subject.
Probably the.
What just happened there? You feel awkward? Is this hard for
No,
you?
I'm just saying, one of the
Paying
kids,
attention
I'm
is
totally
hard
good with
to-
it.
one of the
no,
kids
sounds
is
okay with you, too.
taller and faster. And I'm just saying.
One of the kids is taller and faster because he's 4 years older than the rest. That's how age works.
Same.
Thank you so much. All right,
There you go.
good.
Here you go,
You
take
want
it.
me to take this?
So anyway, the knowledge is out.
The knowledge is out. I just showed Chris it. It's fantastic. There's some amazing people in the audience.
Oh, my gosh. There's the best. Right there is the best coach coming.
There's
Right
the,
there.
1,000%.
Jeff
If
Adler.
you guys
the
have-
favorite for the
the
2023
favorite.
games.
Right there.
1,000.
Right there.
That's
Right.
we were
I-
talking about it yesterday. Jeff is number 1.
Do you know what she did when Jeff wanted to take it seriously and she was like, "Hey, you're gonna take this
Said
seriously."
we can't date anymore.
No. You know
Hey,
what?
Caroline,
you know what?
come
The
here,
very
come here.
first thing she told him that
No,
he
but
had
you
to
come
do
on
was.
camera.
Do you know this, Chris?
No.
So the very first thing she told him
We
to
have
do
to
was
get
like,
married.
"No." He's like, "You're gonna have to take a nap every day at noon. You're gonna sleep for
Little
an hour
siesta?
if you recover." And he's like,
I'm in.
"Yeah." He's like, "That's it." No, but like that's the level of her understanding of this space. Is
No
like,
coach ever said I would be a better athlete if a coach was like, you need to nap.
right?
more."
Have you ever had a coach say that?
No, I would definitely be at the games competing.
You would be there, but you're not.
Let her talk about it.
No, Caroline knows her recovery.
You were on my list for the games, for the record.
Yeah,
And you were on my list, and I was like, I don't want to bug her.
She's got a
Yeah,
her plate's full.
yeah.
No.
Could you imagine?
I'll make
Seriously,
time
I'll
for
show you. It's on Trello.
Well, listen,
I'll
I
make
want to
time
give
for
her a
you
shout
guys.
out.
All right.
She's been listening since day one.
Yes.
Since day one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have conversations that sometimes get a little bit animated, but it's only because we're passionate about what we do, but we listen. And
Yeah.
she wants to learn, and I
That
want to
guy
learn.
too.
Right.
There's a 45-minute video of Pat and I arguing about the push jerk.
There is. It's high definition. It's wonderful.
You can go through discussion. Like you have to be
It's
willing
great.
to learn and listen and
It's the
question.
first time I think I've seen this bad boy.
Yeah.
Look at
There
this.
you go.
Hey, this is
out.
the
He
this
picked
is
it
the
out.
There you
this
go.
is the Rogue Invitational winnings right there.
It pays well. It pays well. Oh, that's
Well,
awesome.
how's Jeff feeling going in? You ready?
I can't
How
wait
you
for it to
feeling?
start.
How you feeling?
I'm.
We're ready. You're ready.
I
all
have no
coaches.
words. We want it to start. I want it to be tomorrow morning, like getting on the bike.
Because this is kind of a late start,
This is a
normal.
limbo.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
we're used to starting on Wednesday, so
yeah.
just like an extra day. But you
What's the
just
first event?
ride the bike event?
The bike.
Okay.
40
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long time domain
Super.
to start out. I mean, the level of fatigue that is going to create, that's going to carry through the whole
Talk
weekend.
us through. Why would that happen? 40 minutes. What is it? 40 minutes max distance?
40 minutes. I mean,
AMRAP, yeah, it's an AMRAP 40 minutes, so they're going for the most amount of laps. Not sure with the tiebreaker. They're getting their
split
briefings
times, maybe?
this afternoon, but yeah.
It's got to be split times somewhere in there. Yeah.
So, and then what will the impact of that be over the week?
so what you have to realize is that in a 40-minute event like that, the intensity is not going to be high in the beginning. So you're going to recruit these slow twitch fibers, which have a lot of capacity. But if you haven't done enough training in that movement, eventually the slow twitch fibers are going to run out of capacity. They're going to run out of that stamina to maintain that initial intensity. So then what choice do you have to continue? You're going to have to start recruiting fast twitch fibers. And now death is on its way. The problem with recruiting the fast twitch fibers is that they don't have as much capacity as the slow. And so what it will do is expose the people that haven't done enough volume, because they're going to fatigue the entire spectrum of muscle fibers all the way to the fastest of the fast, such as the one that you do a 1-rep lift with. So they're going to now carry a neurological fatigue that's going to destroy their games.
So,
That's what I was going to say.
specific to biking, even is it modality specific too, or like if someone had been going 40-minute rucking?
It has to do, remember, every movement is unique, right? That's that theory of specificity. So that's what makes what Caroline does so difficult,
Did
because
you do a 40-minute bike?
but
It's
it's
90 minutes.
In your face.
Put some money on Jeff for me, Cody.
Adler is going to get second.
He's got this.
But imagine the difficulty in being a coach at that level, that she doesn't know the time domain of a workout. But if you don't train that time domain, then that athlete is not going to be prepared, and that's going to carry it into the next event. Imagine that you're trying to predict and convince an athlete that this workout is the highest and best use of your time based upon no information.
So, what do you do to convince Jeff when he's like 40-minute bike, and you're like, dude, honey, whatever you call him, we're gonna see biking at the games.
I tell Chris to text Jeff.
That's smart.
I don't argue with him anymore.
Smart,
Like,
yeah.
if you won't listen to me, I will find the
Has
person you listen to, and
He's
then I
like,
just
"Damn
text
it."
Chris.
Has the relationship changed coach to athlete now that you're engaged?
No.
She's always been in charge.
You're not like a little softer, like he's gonna be my husband.
No.
Oh no, they go at it, and it's so awesome. But it's going at it over. Jeff is like, that's too fast, that's too much, and she's like, no, it's perfect, and eventually, like,
She's right.
Chris, what do you think? And I'm like, I agree with Caroline.
Where do you loop Chris in? Where do you get looped into this conversation?
I help them with the endurance side of the
Okay,
equation.
so
Yeah,
you're
for the
part
last,
of the team.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, coming on 2 years.
Gotcha.
You
And
have to be willing to listen to other people.
Has Jeff's endurance improved since Chris has become
Yeah.
part of it?
A lot.
We're not
Like
going
the
to talk.
spectrum of it.
Yeah.
He's never been a bad endurance athlete. Like, people remember Jeff for his lifts and, like, you know, his one-liners and stuff like that. But, like, his first event at regionals in 2018 was the 333, and he finished fifth. Like, the first event at the games in 2019 was the 5 rounds,
Yep.
the 400 meters.
Yep.
He finished fifth. Like, he's not a bad endurance athlete. It's just not flashy, and the cameras are on someone else, so people don't remember that he does well. Even in other competition, Rogue, Dubai, or all these other events, he does relatively well.
I think the
I
saying
just
is
want
he or
him-
she who finished statistically best across the highest
Exactly.
number.
Doesn't have to win
I
one
heard that.
event.
I
No,
heard that
but-
somewhere.
But he's learned how to win.
Put your hands together for our Noble CrossFit Games champion, Jeffrey Adler. He comes, his hometown is Quebec, Canada. He's with CrossFit Wonderland. This is his 5th consecutive Games appearance. He finished first place at the North America East semifinal. He won Helena this year. And this is the first time since 2009 that a non-United States male has won the CrossFit Games, buddy. A big round of applause for our 2023 Noble CrossFit Games champion, Jeffrey Adler.
In the last
Yeah.
18 months, he's learned how to win.
Yeah.
And that is important. If you want to win, you have to know how to win.
When did you guys as a team say, hey, we need an, like, I'm a good coach,
Yeah.
I can program, but there's this expert out there that we should look into?
Can we talk about how we started?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So a lot of times with me, it's a lot of work to coach a games athlete. And Caroline doesn't know because she hasn't done what I do. Like some of the workouts I write for Jeff take 4 hours, one workout, because of the amount of information and the detail. And I have to make sure that Jeff is doing something that's impossible, that he thinks is impossible. Because in the end of the day, what we're trying to do is build his confidence, right? To do something on game day that's impossible. And he has to believe in his heart it's impossible. But because he's done so many impossibles and was successful, why not now? And that's the key, right? There's not a big difference between the top 10. But the ones that can execute, the ones that can believe, to stay strategic, are the ones going to win. So part of it is I know the amount of work it takes, and that's why I don't work with a lot of people. So when Caroline approached me, I put together a fairly thorough Google Doc.
Yeah.
And I know every time Caroline's in that doc. I know if she's making changes. I know if she's looked at
They
it.
didn't
I can
lock
see
it.
the
They lock me
frequency.
out of every doc.
Well, no, yours would get deleted.
I've done that a couple of times.
You would last a week and it would disappear, and you're like,
What happened?
yeah, did I do something wrong? No, yeah, you just didn't open up the doc in a week. So a couple months go by because there was plenty of workouts in there, and I'm watching her populate result after result after result. It was a level of detail that I've never seen from any other athlete I've ever worked with.
That's cool.
Yes, and I realized Jeff Adler's the guy I want to work with because of the coach. She realizes that information has value. And
There's a lot of value,
And
that
that's
was
the
thing.
truth.
Like I was like, I want. It's worth it for me to put in all that amount because I know what it takes and I know therefore the amount of work that you put in. So I was like, I'm going to give you information is power. I want to give him as much information so we can take it to the next level and make sure we keep improving based on all this information that we have. And that's
At what point did you as the coach, you're like, hey, Jeff, if you don't marry her, you're an idiot?
That was on the doc. It was on the doc. But I think what's really cool
Yeah.
is for you
Right,
guys,
propose.
Jeff doesn't have to think.
But no,
That's
that's not true.
No,
Jeff
he's a
owns all of
very
his
smart
workouts.
athlete.
Jeff owns his workouts, and that's the problem is that a lot of athletes, they like to be told what to do, and I'm sorry, that's the kiss of death.
Really?
If you don't want to know the purpose behind a workout, you don't, like for example, you're doing a 5x5 back squat. What's the purpose of that
Yeah, why-
workout?
why are we doing this?
Why are you doing that? Is the focus on maximizing
Because
your
back
strength?
squats cure everything.
No, but is it maximizing strength? Are you thinking about your recovery in there? Maybe your recovery isn't 3 minutes. Maybe it's 1 minute. Maybe you're doing a 500-meter row in 3 minutes. Why? And so you
Okay.
want athletes to understand that because when we hand it to him, he's got to execute. And well, what if we're not there
Yeah.
and all of a sudden he's not able to hold the pace? Does he have the latitude in the workout to adjust the recovery, or should he pull the plug?
And I suppose he shows up at the games and has to do an event he's never done. He can relate that to a
Yes.
workout because, like, oh, this is very similar to when I
Because that-
squatted and
you-
rode.
Like I might not be able to talk to him, or we might have very limited amount of time because we need to warm up, we need to
But
prep.
the
he needs
workout
to
might be
corral.
different than you anticipated
Exactly.
going
so
into it.
Well,
he
this is-
needs to like own the workouts and the knowledge that he gains from every workout that he does.
So-
like it's valuable.
And this is similar to like I've trained guys that have gone through like military special ops courses, and some of those they're distance runs, but they can't have
Yep.
a time device. Meaning they have to know when they step off. I'm like, this is too fast. This is too slow. I'm like, oh, this is exactly where I should
Which is
be.
a very easy skill.
Right, and then you have to learn that, but you have to put in your reps learning that, but you also have to have the wherewithal more in a competition setting where, like, let's say Pat takes off. I was going to use Jay, but he's slow, but let's say Pat takes off, I have to have the wherewithal to not chase Pat if that's going to be outside of my pacing. And I have to know, like, oh, I'm going to let him go. I need to stay right here in order to do that.
But that's the difference between someone who is here to participate versus someone who wants to compete.
Works out in their basement.
There's a difference. There is a tactical athlete. So I'll tell you a story about Kalipa one time. So we were running on the track, and Kalipa, back in the day, he's a very loud, obnoxious, heavy breather, lots of hair and sweat, and it's like,
Yep.
and a lot of noises, and he really swings wide. He's got a wide footstep, and so when I would run with him in these workouts, I would sit on the outside of him as we would go around the track, and every now and then I'd be bored because we were going slow, and for entertainment purposes, I would come up in front of him and jam him in his bicep and push off and pretend it was an accident. Well, after about, and I used to think like it was really funny in the middle of the workout, like he didn't know. But remember, he was thinking about his pace. He was thinking about like the amount of distance he was going. He had all these other things until one day I jam him in the corner and he looks over and he's all, you do that again, I'm going to flick you with my elbow. And you're so small, I'm going to fly you from lane 1. You're going to shoot out to lane 9 over that chain link fence. Remember that at Foothill? And you're going to fly over that fence. And I stop and, like I stop and he stops like 10 meters in front of me. He's like, what, did I offend you? And I'm like, I'm proud of you. And he's like, I threaten you and you're proud. I'm confused. And that's how our relationship always was. And he said, I don't understand. And I said, because you now know I'm playing a game. And that is a tactical move I made on your part. And now you're a competitor. And I never treated him the same ever again because he was a threat. And that's where Jeff is.
Ooh, I like that.
And that's why Kalipa started jiu-jitsu.
Well, that's another place, right?
How did you connect those dots just now?
Because he was getting bullied by Henshaw.
Hold on.
Like, I need to
Wait a
defend
minute.
myself.
I don't have the ability to bully.
You did, though.
You kind of did.
Yeah.
But
Do you think that was?
psychological
I'm
bullying.
kind of almost proud of myself. First time.
Psychological
So
bullying.
how we thinking? You thinking Jeff's?
The thing is that it's a long week. And we've always said, like, leading up to this from semifinals on, just stay healthy, stay healthy. You know this.
Yeah.
And you could be the best athlete, but you just are not on that time, right?
Yeah.
Health.
Yeah.
And so Caroline's having to manage not only the workouts, but balance of whether or not he's going to be healthy and peaking just at the right time. There's no coaches that have it this difficult in any sport because of the duration, right? And the unknown.
Unknown, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, no, that's why Caroline's one of the very best. Sean Woodland said it yesterday to me.
Thank you.
What do you say?
She's one of the very best.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Take it seriously.
Yeah, it's what's really been fun. I mean, we met 7 years ago. No,
yeah,
I met
actually more than 4 years
at
ago.
a
5 or 6
seminar years ago.
Yeah.
We were talking about Atlas Shrugged. I remember at the Saturday night dinner.
That was such a great conversation.
Yeah.
That's
And-
like top 5.
It was like Caroline and I, and then the rest of the seminar staff were like, who knows what
We're out.
they're
We're out.
talking about. But seeing Jeff's growth, and
Yeah.
saw him win the Rogue when we were there that
Yep.
year.
Yep.
And then it's just been, and I agree. I think I don't track the sport super well, but from a distance and talking to you and Jeff, mindset
Yeah.
is like
And
on
every
another
athlete
level.
is different.
Another level. Like you could see the confidence in his performance.
Yeah. Because he's proved it to himself that he can do it. He doesn't talk much. He's not showy. Like, he needs to actually do it, and then he'll believe. So it's kind of like.
A little imposter
That's
syndrome,
right.
you think?
Pardon?
You think a little imposter syndrome?
No, I
No.
don't think so.
No, it's about building
But he'll
confidence.
never put the cart in front of the horse. Like, he needs to podium in order
Right.
to believe that he can podium. Until then, it's unproven. You can have the best team on paper. You can have the best player on paper. You need to perform come game day. And that's how Jeff thinks. Like,
That's
until
cool.
I actually do it, you need
Yeah.
a little bit of hope, a little bit of belief in
Right.
yourself, confidence, yes. But along the way in the last 2 years, I think that's the biggest transformation. And he's had the confirmation that the work he's put in is working.
That's cool.
And he's getting the results that he's working for.
That's fantastic. Very
Well,
cool.
I mean,
He's
he
got
does.
Henshaw.
He's willing though to do things that others aren't. Like we came up and stayed with them for 5 days
Yeah.
in June, and
In Canada?
Yeah.
yeah, and I told Jeff, I go, I'm thinking we need to test your aerobic capacity again because we tested it 6 months prior. So let's just see whether or not you're actually pegged at your genetic limit in the movement of running. And so we arranged for someone to come and do a VO2 max test in the movement of running. And while we were having that conversation, I said, I really think that we should do in the same day 6 more tests. And he's like, all right, if that's what you think. So we did 7 VO2 max tests on Jeff in one day.
That sounds
That's
like a lot.
disgusting.
Yeah, that was
It's
gross.
but
That's
that
7
says
more than I've
but-
ever done.
But think about that. That there's an athlete that understands the value of that and just not okay. Let's do it. And at the end of the day, he's like,
That's excruciating.
Was
He
it
said-
improved? It was better?
yes, his
From 6
VO2
months
did
earlier?
raise. But I mean, at the end of the day, he even said that these guys, I'm done. You know, I'm melting inside.
Is that like a test where the better you perform, the longer it goes as well?
No, so what it is it's measuring your maximum ability to breathe in oxygen, take that oxygen to the moving muscles. So it measures in milliliters of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute. The higher the number, meaning the more milliliters, the greater your capacity. But remember, that's not a sustainable pace. You have to slow down some to find your sustainable pace. So let's say that your VO2 max is 100, which
Is that
is
the best?
no, like 93 is the best. 96.
Some better than the best.
Right. So, but you're 100, but for math's sake, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so let's say mine's 50. That means that you can slow down 50% and be at my maximum. So a high one is very valuable because it gives you an opportunity to easily beat someone who has genetically a lower number. It's an advantage.
Yeah,
And so when
it's a
he
hedge.
when he did this last test, the one that he said is he's all, what was Rich's when before he does
Yeah.
this test? And I'm like, it was 73, 73.2 milliliters. And he's all, I'm going to beat that.
But that's not something you can beat by work ethic or
No,
in that
it's,
moment.
It's a lot of
right?
genetics
Yeah.
and work.
It's there.
You have to.
You need both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
You
both.
need to
But
put
it's
in
not
the
at one
water
time
and
like
you
I'm going to
need
go
put in there.
hard. It's like I had to have been going hard the last 6 months to have made that improvement.
Yes. Well, it happens. Yeah, that happens fast, but it's a lot of genetics. And so what you want to do is get to your genetic limit and then keep doing high intensity training to stay pegged at that limit. Because what's valuable is your sustainable pace. And you can improve your sustainable pace whether you're a man or a woman, old or young, for your life. And that's why you see elite marathon runners reach their peak at around 35 because
Stay
what
there.
their improvement is they're sustainable.
How was this, guys? You ever work with him?
No, we've worked together and I loved working. Yeah.
Working together was great.
But your VO2
VO2 max garbage,
The worst.
probably. That
No, we didn't do so.
Nah.
That was the thing is back then.
was the Wild West.
Yeah, it was a different
VO2 max.
sport. Now, it's so granular. Like what Caroline's doing is squeezing out fractions of improvement.
Yeah.
And
Is it fun for you? Do you enjoy that?
Yes.
Like so meticulous, so nuanced?
It's It,
You enjoy it?
to see potential realized, like I don't know where the end is. So that's what you're working towards. It's an endless journey.
Well, you
Like,
could
I
always
love
tell that. Like she always would ask good questions in someone like the coach development. So I'm like, okay,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
somebody who's like really paying attention,
She's
like
a
wants
smart.
to
You're
know,
very smart.
like know the information. Yeah.
How'd you get so smart? Were you
Curious.
valedictorian?
No.
Do they do that in Canada?
Yeah, they do. No.
how many
By the way,
special
we're going to be in Canada in October.
how many special
Ooh, where?
But what's Yule?
That's like right next to me.
We're gonna be there in October.
Well, we'll be at both. We'll be at both.
Okay, you have to
Wonderland.
come and visit.
Wonderland, right?
Yeah, Wonderland.
Yeah, we'll come see.
Hey,
you.
Oh, awesome.
you know how you hired a coach to help with Jeff?
Yep.
And you're a coach at your box, right?
Yep.
Imagine if you had a coach
Yeah.
Imagine if
I
you
know.
will.
as a
you will.
coach,
Yeah.
and it was like an app kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
I'd
Pat
be down.
Barber was.
I'd be down.
Well, you get a free T-shirt if you sign up this week.
Here's what we got to do. We got to get you in the app. Talk about some coaching stuff
here we go.
Yeah.
They're
for competitors, but at a different level, because you're the top 0.0001%.
Let's go. October.
Everyone can do what I'm doing.
That's not true.
That is true.
That is. I could not do what
I
you
took
do.
the seminars.
I
I
just tell you
took the
from a-
learning. I applied it.
From
Like
a focus
everybody can do
perspective,
this.
I couldn't do it. Like I can't sit at my computer for
So-
4 hours and write a freaking
So let's show
workout.
people how to do that. That's what we'll
We
do.
can do that.
Well, we'll do that
We
when
can
we
do
come
it.
to Canada. I'm in.
I'm doing your job.
That was great. No, you
Hey,
did a great
Marcus,
job.
We don't need
Yeah.
Pat
No,
anymore.
yeah, that's
We
right.
don't need
Sales
Pat
pitch.
anymore. He can go home today. He can
He's done. Yeah. Make sure you get a meal on the way out there.
on your own credit card. On your own credit card, not on ours.
say hello to Taz for me.
Yeah.
Easy.
Everybody
Heidi's
calm
still
down.
here.
Everybody calm down.
Heidi, how long you been married?
14.
Where'd she go?
Hey,
She's
Heidi.
out in the back. Yeah.
But
Doesn't
Heidi,
mean that I can't be honest about who I like.
I love Taz. Like, she's my CrossFit crush.
There you go.
Where is she? I want her here, not Pat.
got
You
kids
know,
watching.
You need to become more comfortable with your body.
Well, listen. We'll talk about how
I'm too comfortable
We'll talk
with my
about how
body.
we'll talk about how smart Pat's wife is. He and I argued for 45 minutes. She walks in the door.
She solves it.
We tell her what we're arguing about.
Your timing punch is changing based off of the height that you're jumping.
She goes, "Here's what you're saying, and here's what you're saying." I'm like, "You should have been here an hour ago."
Wait,
Just solve
give
this.
us the gist of it. Let's get Caroline's opinion on there, and Chris's. Yeah.
So here's the we're delaying.
And
We're,
it's
we're,
going to be on the knowledge.
we're building a back
At
end
some
coaching
point.
development thing
Yeah.
where we're talking about working through progressions. And I've seen this happen many times at a level 1 where I watch my level 1 trainers demonstrate the push press, and they're teaching a progression for the push press, and they demonstrate not a push press, push jerk.
Push jerk, yeah.
And they demonstrate it like this.
It's technically incorrect. We'll preface it with this.
This is what they demonstrate.
Right.
That's their demo. Whereas my demo,
So
the timing of the hands,
the face I was
the
looking for.
timing of the hands is jump, punch, land.
Right.
His is jump, punch, land. So the
I
timing
like the
is
first one. I
Better.
feel like
you
could've
do
been
like it, but
snapping
that's
your
that's
hips.
well, ignore the hips. We're just talking about the
Okay,
upper
with
body.
The bar left, yeah.
Win the bar left. So we fought for 45 minutes. He's like, this is a teaching progression. So like, he wants to clearly show hip extension
Yeah.
before the person
The
punches.
timing. It's a sequence thing. we're
But
trying
that
to highlight.
happens instantaneously in a real lift. It's more important that you have the punch aggressively after the hip goes.
And
so
this
the
is where we
second-
disagreed when he says more important. I'm like, it depends on
10
what we're
times
talking
more
about.
important.
Yeah.
I'm ready
I'll
to-
kill you. I'll
I'm
kick
ready-
your
I'm
ethnic
ready.
wiener. I don't care.
Mathematically impossible.
Anyway, so
I'm
we
gonna
fought
vote.
for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
She came in and was like,
What did Taz
She's like,
say?
here's what you're trying to say. Here's what you're trying to say. And I'm like, so we agree? And she was like, yes. Can we move on, please?
What'd you think? Watching that.
Both valid points. I guess it
There you
depends
go.
what the coaching.
This is proof that women are
issue.
smarter than men.
Heidi knew too.
Yeah.
I'm voting.
Like, are you focusing on the hip extension or are you
Nice
focusing
show,
on the
Chris.
timing?
I had
Which are 2 points of, they're 2 different things, but they're 2 valid points of performance for that movement. So
Yeah.
you need to address both, but it's just a question of where do you want to take it?
But you're gonna
what
be
does the coach need?
We're gonna have Caroline on the knowledge.
For sure.
That's a great idea.
I don't know if you were here 5 minutes ago, but we've gone past that.
covered that.
It's closed that
Circling
loop.
back. I'm circling back.
Yeah, once you
Call
get
back.
once you make the sale,
Move on.
He has no concept. No concept. No concept.
That's interesting. All right,
Cool.
let's
right.
we Caroline.
Yeah.
Keep talking, but I don't. Where's Jeff right now?
Opening ceremony? Probably, what time
Oh.
is it?
oh,
Right now.
How's that happening?
In 4 minutes,
Oh, you-
he'll be stepping out.
Well, get out of here then.
No.
Like, I don't care.
He's,
Okay.
they wanted him to hold the flag again,
Oh.
and he's like, it's an hour. We're Canada. We're like one of the first ones out, and then it takes 50 minutes to walk everybody out. And they sent the memo. They're like, you're not allowed to pass the flag. And we're like,
So whoever
no.
walks out with it-
whoever walks out, because they have a script
He's
and blah blah.
thinking
blah. And I
about
was
that.
like,
He's thinking about that energy expenditure.
Who's rep-
I went to see
You hold
someone
that
at
flag for
Athlete
an
Control.
hour.
I was like, I'm vetoing this decision. He is not holding it for an hour. They're like, okay, we'll see what we can do. And I was
So who'd
like,
they
yes,
pick? Who'd they
get
pick
back
to
to
rep-
Jeff.
it's
Pardon?
awesome. It's
Who'd they pick?
I don't know, because I had to leave. Like,
Fellner,
they're walking to
Fikowski.
North Park,
nobody.
and then
They're smart enough not to carry it.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to carry it.
but they got to give it to someone who's not
Not got a shot.
in.
Give it to
Hey, anybody here gonna finish probably lower than 30th? Here's the flag. Yeah.
Ouch. Ouch.
Any
Yeah.
team members
Enjoy
want
your
to
time.
hold the Canadian flag?
Yeah. Whoever's not making it to Sunday, hold the flag. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Well, let's talk. We got you guys here. You're programming for a very different demographic.
I programmed for the box too.
Well, that's where we're going with this.
Okay.
Right.
She's
That's
about
where I
to-
was going. I was leading.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm going to help Jay put
Roundabout
this
way.
thought together for
Long
everybody.
way.
Nice job.
So, what we were going to talk about earlier was just programming. Yeah, Jay has no concept of anything that's happening over here. There's a full production happening. and
He's
just-
elbowing me out of the shot. He's pushing me out of the shot.
So, and kind of what we were talking about beforehand, but programming specifically in the realm of aerobic capacity for the gym. Do you layer specific aspects of that into your programming?
Yes.
Because I want to get your thoughts and your thoughts on that, because that's kind of what we were talking about before.
Yes. Short answer is yes.
How do you do that?
Do exactly what Chris says in his seminar. Okay. I guess it's that simple. Like, people are looking for a magic pill or something. It's like 5x5 back squat. I can We can row. We've done it with rowing, 3 minutes, burpee, like recover for 1 minute, just do burpees. I just want you to move because I want you to move.
That's one thing we've
And
implemented
yeah.
since the podcast that we did. Like very regularly putting that in the recovery.
I mean, I think that's an important piece because you get in a person maybe 3 times a week for an hour.
Yeah.
Are they moving that entire hour? They should be. And unfortunately, what we are doing is we're building in rest. I mean, one of the things that we've talked a lot about is, you know what, a Metcon is a very popular workout in the CrossFit gym, right? Short time domain, very high intensity, and members find it very satisfying. But what do all members do? What do all coaches and gym owners recommend at the end of the Metcon? Nothing. They lay on the ground for 5 minutes and do nothing.
Go home.
What Caroline is recognizing is I have them for that 5 minutes. Is that opportunity to create value in their fitness? Because her performance as a gym is judged on whether or not she's able to create adaptation in a good direction.
results.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah,
that's
results,
what
the PR board,
Right.
right? Like I want
what they
that
came
PR
for.
board to be full every month. How do you do that? You maximize every person that walks in, 60 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week, and that's how you get results.
But maximizing that doesn't mean smashing them in the face for 60 straight minutes.
Correct.
It's
No.
filling the
Correct.
time with constant movement, and which is what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like we do strength days. We respect strength days. But I also have opportunities sometimes to build in some recovery, active recovery
Right.
in a workout, not
I'll
on a
take back
rest
everything
day,
bad
not
I
on
said
a
about
rest
Canada
day.
now. Since you're big, you're now the lead of Canada, the whole country.
You're in charge of the
You're
you're
in charge of
prime minister.
Canada. You're
Prime
prime
minister.
All the
Fern-
power.
Fern is more powerful than you realize. How if you're doing heavy days? Go ahead. You have something
I was just gonna say it's like I think it's really misused the whole hour before. Like I mean, a workout, say a Metcon's 5 minutes, you got so much time to build up to that you should be. The flow should feel constant movement
Right.
the entire time. You're moving from thing to thing. You planned where, hey, go grab the kettlebell. Hey, move to here. Like there should be no dead time, and there's too much. I think that's on the coach's shoulders to fill that time with movement,
That's
and it
correct.
can be super mellow movement. But it's like start to finish. I mean, you remember back at the NorCal days, you should be moving, but that doesn't mean working out. That just means
Correct.
moving. That
That's the
means
distinction.
going through the pieces. Yeah, it's underutilized time.
Well,
But-
that was like I posted in our Slack. I saw a question. Somebody had said it's an 8-minute AMRAP, wall walks, box jumps. Like what happens the other 52
Top
minutes?
comment was, "What do we do with the other 52
Yeah.
minutes?" At which point I
So
wanted to
much
just
opportunity right there.
But
I'm like, oh my God, what can I do with you guys?
Most owners
ram my
and
face into a
coaches
wall when I see that.
don't know that. But
that's the problem though. Why don't they know that?
because they don't sign up for the knowledge.
That's right. And that's what it comes down to. It reverts back to if you're a coach that doesn't want to learn, then how are you going to stay in business?
You're
Because
not.
the competitor down the street is going to know what you don't know.
So, but I used to be pretty mad at where we ended up programming-wise within this community, but I think it's because people know what they've experienced. And the way CrossFit initially started
Yeah.
was the only place you get CrossFit was from CrossFit.com. And so everybody knew CrossFit from the source.
Right.
But then people started doing their own programming. They go to a 2-day seminar, they learn the program, and they do their version of CrossFit.com. And then more and more things started to make its way into that. So someone comes to someone's gym who's done their version of CrossFit.com.
That's all
and
they know.
That's all they know is their
right.
version of CrossFit.com. So they think that that's CrossFit. They go to a 1-day seminar, they come out of that, and then they go and program on their own. So they're doing an affected version of an affected version of an affected version of CrossFit.com. And that just keeps kind of slightly morphing with the only reset being a 1-day seminar. So it's like, I got mad when people would be like, no, we got to smash ourselves all day, every day. And I'm like, no. And like, it's just a game of telephone that got really out of control.
Right.
That we kind of need to revisit back to like, let's see what some of the greats are doing and see how that differs and also can be similar to what happens in an affiliate. Like your perfect example, because you have the tip of the spear, which in application looks like a lot more volume because there's a lot more time spent training. But the principles are the same that you distill down for your affiliate, but it's distilled and done in a very different way because the outcome is different. You're not looking to be the tip of the spear. I
So
guess
the
you're looking
it's the
you're
salt
looking to be the
shaker.
shaft. What?
It's the salt shaker that
I'm glad you heard that.
that Fern talks about, where it's like what you were saying is like this salt shaker just keeps moving, and you're saying that here's where it goes.
Yeah, I got to move it back.
But what Caroline does really well is that balance. You're probably there's less than 5-10 programming for a games athlete,
Yeah.
as well as an affiliate.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, but I mean actually practical application. Like,
Yeah,
nope,
yeah, yeah.
he's here at the games competing, and here's my box.
Yeah. And he did a workout on Friday with the class before we left for the games. Like, that's time is limited for everyone. So whether it's Jeff or somebody coming in, like I want them to have the best value of that hour that I have. So like that's where everything kind of intersects for me. It should be good enough for Jeff. It should be good enough for you. It should be good enough for me. Like it should be good enough for everyone. Like everybody's valuable. So
Well, and take that 8-minute workout again.
yeah.
Well, again, I don't know. Say it's ascending by twos, wall walk, box jumps, call
Yeah.
it 8 minutes. If Jeff were to do that here,
Yep.
there would be 30 to 40 minutes of preparation
Yeah.
explicitly for that workout. And then an owner's like, well, what do I do here? Well, the same exact thing
Yeah.
Jeff is
Get them
doing
ready.
at their level,
Yeah.
right? Like, so we're talking, what's their option going to be for the wall walk, the height of the box? But you're probably doing like some jumps in place, some shoulder mobility.
Yeah.
The same thing a class should be doing. Jeff's just doing it better because he's going to get 10 more rounds than us. So he needs to be. That's what we're saying.
It's the same. Yeah, exactly. You need to warm up properly. You need to practice the skill. You need to get the feel for the intensity you're going to hold for 8 minutes. It's not a sprint. It's 8 minutes. Like you need to be able to last and have a sustainable pace for 8 minutes.
'Cause
So
that's-
what is that going to be? Are you going to test a round? Are you going to test a scaling that is going to be appropriate for you? Like there's a lot of time.
Well, what you're outlining is what you were referencing earlier, which is this teaching portion that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like as we get the lead in and the prep, this is how you get, we'll call them the everyday fitness goer, to own their own training, which is what
Yeah.
you're like. But you can't get them to own it if they don't have the knowledge to be capable of owning it.
Yeah.
And when you do not teach through that portion, they're never getting smarter. So thinking about like how much, so we measure a lot like, hey, how much fitter are they? And I'm like, okay, well that's easy to measure. But like my question to most gym owners, we should probably be thinking is like, how much smarter are they about their
Yeah.
own fitness? Like how many of them kind of like understand time domains and pacing and loading and how to work
Yeah.
up and all this? If they don't know any of that stuff, and I'm like, that is a very, very obvious failure point from a coaching standpoint. Like,
Yeah.
if your members do not understand what they are doing, you're missing a lot.
Here's the
A
thing,
lot.
though. The member isn't going to know, right?
Right.
The
Because
coach.
it's the coach that needs to know to explain that, right? And if the coach doesn't
Right.
do
Yeah.
it,
But that's what I'm saying. When the coach
Right.
doesn't do that, that knowledge is never transferred 3 people down the
That's
line,
correct.
which
Yeah.
is what
Right.
what we've been preaching
like
forever.
even the
We'll continue-
concept of intensity.
Right.
What is high intensity?
Yeah.
Like if you go ask a flow master, in the definition of CrossFit, it's constantly varied functional movement, high intensity.
Wait, you got
Ex-
2 flow masters here, so let's see what
I
happens.
don't want to put them on the spot because I don't think
Do
they'll
it.
answer the question properly.
They're going to get it wrong, is what.
I
Yes.
will.
Yeah,
All right, put Pat on the spot. Put
What is
Pat on
the
the spot.
physiological
Oh,
adaptation
he talked-
involved in high intensity?
talked about this in the
and
last
what
podcast.
is the specific intensity that you should do to define it?
Hey, we'll edit this out when you get it wrong.
No,
that's
don't
fine.
even answer it because I
Because there's
I
no
just want
chance
to put
you're
it
gonna
out
get it
there
right.
because there is a defined time domain that is considered high intensity.
What is it?
And
Pat?
what is it?
Yeah, what is it?
Define
Right, and what
time
is the
domain?
purpose
Tell
of
us,
that
I know.
defined?
You-
And what
you
is
tell
the
us.
purpose?
I know.
What is the defined purpose of that time domain?
Fern knows that one.
Right, and that's what you have to realize, and that's what I want to
silent.
point out is that you have to continuously learn so that you could educate your members because when those members learn more, that's the trick to get retention
Correct.
because that's how we're all judged. Do they want to go back and be coached by Caroline? And if she
Yeah.
could hold them in some way, then that I think she's
And
a good
there's
coach.
no chance they're going to the box down the road because as soon as they walk in, they're like, oh, they don't know anything like my coach does.
Well, like when I coached Pat, here was the trap. I knew
it's a trap.
how good he was in multiple time domains. I knew his 200 time, his 400 time, his 800 time, his mile time, his 5K, his 10K. And so I was able to personalize for both Pat and Taz workouts with accurate precision. I could define his distances, his intensities, and recovery within 1 second. He knew. He would look at it, I don't know, but Hinshaw's never steered me wrong. I'll do it. And that's the key, because if he leaves, he'll never get that.
Right.
But he left.
But go back to
Well,
the
only
so-
because he wanted to come and work with you guys.
No, he just got late. He got left too far
But
before
go
that.
go back to that time domain. What is that time domain? Because I don't want to skip over that because you were talking about earlier. So like that time domain you're talking about is that it's
Well-
defined as intensity.
But this
What
is
is it?
specific to running.
No, but anything.
Well-
I do it with everything.
You do it with everything, but that time domain studied and understood specific to running, right?
No, no. So you're talking about muscular capacity. What I'm talking about is metabolic stimulus of high intensity.
But
Well-
what is that studied on? Is that studied on running or is that studied on thrusters.
No, it's studied based upon your building of your VO2 max, your maximum ability to move and utilize oxygen, and that is in a 6 to 9 minute time domain, depending upon the fitness level of the individual.
Right. So
Elites is 9 minutes, recreational is 6 minutes, and so it's your level of intensity that you can maintain within that time domain, and
Great.
that is the time domain.
Why are you arguing with the?
I'm not arguing with him. I'm talking to
It
him.
could be thrusters, it could be pull-ups, it could
Right.
be anything. It's about maximal effort within that amount
You're
of
being
time.
confrontational. This is
I know.
awkward.
Where's Tess?
Yeah, she could have solved this 5 minutes ago.
No, but that's awesome. So the 6 to 9 minute time domain is defined as the intense time domain. Is that what you're saying?
Is defined as the intensity time domain to maximize your ability to move and utilize oxygen, which is your VO2 max.
Right.
And
So if
that
you were
is-
training in the 6 to 9 time domain across
Or
what
less,
you're doing,
or less. Yes.
then you're maximizing your ability to
that would be considered high intensity, in my
Right.
opinion.
Still falls
Yeah.
in line with
everything that we do.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, but you
Just-
couldn't
that falls in
define that
equation.
until I just said it.
Well, I still probably couldn't define it the way you said it.
Right.
But in
But it also
terms
falls
of
in line with
understanding
the
the
power
outcome,
equation.
it's the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Caroline can.
Yeah.
So that's my point, is that it comes back to the why behind what we're doing. And if you're looking at variables within workouts, like you're manipulating
But
volume.
Chris, I would argue that if you that level of specificity is only appropriate for the tip end of the spear. Like in term, but I think it is in terms
no,
of.
it's not.
Okay.
Talk to me about why would it not be?
Okay, because if you what? Okay, so let's just say that you neglect doing that specific intensity.
Why would
in
I
a movement.
neglect that?
But let's say
'Cause you're
because you don't know
lazy.
any better.
'Cause you're
Because
lazy.
you don't know any better because you said it's the tip of the spear.
No. I said
lazy and dumb, according to
understanding the specificity of that is the tip of the spear in terms of how to maximize it for an
But
individual.
how many people are actually doing what I just said? How many?
hitting 6 to 9 minute is a
No,
time
how-
domain consistently?
How many know what I just said and the value of hitting that on a regular basis and what is considered regular?
I mean,
in
it's
order to
literally part of the programming.
What is it
language.
considered maintaining that?
What do you mean?
How often do you need to hit it in a movement to maintain that, or you lose
In
it?
a movement or in a like a cycle of programming?
Right. There, so you don't know.
Okay.
You're guessing.
Yeah, I would be
Right.
guessing in
Oh,
terms
right.
of this the specific
Right.
amount.
Right.
I
for
know.
the
So
movement.
that's what I'm saying, is that that's where the knowledge piece comes in, is that you want to be thinking about the frequency, like what CrossFit used to do. Remember back in SoCal, and they had that whole, like they had 45 days, and they would log
Yeah.
in workouts, and they would see the flow, and what are we hitting? Are we hitting all these stimulus in there? Are we hitting all the movements?
Right.
That's what she does.
Right.
She's looking at whether or not we're maintaining the regular frequency. For example, do people run at a zone 2 intensity all year? Or do they think, oh, you know what? I'm just going to work on my running, or I'm going to work on my cardio when I need to, and I'll just step it up 4 weeks out, 8 weeks out.
Well, that's what most people do, but this is where I'm kind of agreeing with. I understand what you're saying, and what you're covering is I think it's just another layer deep on the basic concept of like, hey, we want to be looking at varying, making sure that we're getting good broad variance across movements, time
Yes.
domains, everything,
course.
and that, like, obviously. If we're talking about intensity, force times distance over time equals average power equal to intensity. Like, we're driving that number to the number that we want. And I can do it with movements. I can do it with time domains. And we should be doing all that. I think where we are kind of talking past each other is we're kind of saying the same thing. You're saying it like one layer deeper, where you're now getting into movements, which I think you should get into. All of this goes to the point that we're talking about with the program is like we need to be spending more time evaluating those things, whether we're talking about programming for a gym or I'm going to be programming for Jeff or Pat or Taz or whoever, and looking at it a little bit more critically, because what I'll tell you is like a lot of people are just looking at the programming blindly, putting no thought into it. Like, how would I take this programming, no matter where I got it from, and appropriately apply it to Chris or like anybody that doesn't matter?
And that's what Pat does. That's an art.
Correct.
And that is a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Taz, yeah.
sorry. Sorry.
You know that it's. I just face. She does the thing.
But that's an art.
Right.
Right?
Agreed. 100%
Like we all talk
agreed.
about the number one workout on .com historically
5K.
has been the 5K.
Yeah.
But why? What's the physiological reason that Glassman had that there?
Originally, it's just because Glassman's a contrarian.
No.
And he was
No.
like, yeah, you're going to run a 5K because you're a
That's
bunch-
not true. See,
Okay.
that's my point. Is there's a physiological reason for 20 minutes, and that is really your definition of where lactate threshold should be. If you want to know what it feels like to be at maximum sustainable pace, right? If you have that capacity, 5K. 5K row.
What if
That's
my
what
5K
it is.
takes 30 minutes?
So I would,
relative intensity.
I'm gonna tell you a story so we can have a soundbite for you to cut away later.
Dude,
'cause I know
Cody,
you like
Cody, get
chopping
ready.
these things up.
Cody, he does it.
So Heidi and I were in Quantico. We got brought out by a Colonel Nick Gregson, and he brought out 17 training commands for the Marine Corps. And it was an educational week. And during that, like, third day in, the commanding general of Quantico, the U.S. Marine Corps base there in Quantico, comes up with his chiefs of staff and comes up next to me. He's my age. You know, my dad used to do a lot of yelling at me, and so I'm not rattled by someone with, you know, gray hair. Like, I'm really okay about it. And so he comes up and he's like, what are you hearing at the water cooler? And I'm like, wow, like, that's what he wants to know. Like, he wants to know if I'm towing the party line, right? Because here I am, I'm a contractor on base. I'm not in the Marine Corps. And so I told him, I said, you know what that's actually being talked about is why do you guys have to run 3 miles? That you got the Navy at 1.5 miles. You got the Coast Guard 1.5 miles, right? You got FBI, fire, law enforcement, 1.5 miles, right? Even going through buds, 1.5 miles.
Right.
You got the Army at 2 miles, but the Marines have to do for their PFT 3 miles. And he looks and he's like, and how'd you answer that? Because, one, I knew right then, like, he wanted to make sure towing the party line, but I also knew that he wanted to know. And so what I told him was, I said, look, you have to realize, and this is what I think Glassman really understood because he understands this. You have to realize that the 1.5 miles is a known VO2 max test. It's a Cooper test. It's been around since 1968. What you do is 1.5 miles, you look at your finishing time, and that finishing time will tell you your aerobic capacity, your VO2 in the movement of running. That's all it tells you. It's not a sustainable pace. It's your maximum output. To find your sustainable, you have to slow down. And you want to know what the United States Marine Corps tests? You're sustainable. And that's what a 3 mile does. That's a true story.
They still whined about it. They're still like, 3 miles.
No, because I want to know what you can do now.
Immediately, the Marine Corps was like, that just verifies that we're better than
They should never change it. They should never change it. The Marine Corps is gnarly. And you know what? That is a good test.
Yeah, it should be.
So go back to you were gonna talk about how you implement that with an affiliate versus just the tip of the spear. So like knowing at 6 to 9 how many times that hits, because like I want to get back into this because it's like, I mean, you don't control the volume that an affiliate member comes in, so you have to program in a general sense. It can't be specific the same way. So how does that then work its way in? The fact that you know the exact definition versus knowing that we should spend more time in the 6 to 9 minute frame, which we say at any of the things that we do.
But before you answer, one thing you did just say that Fern and I talk to affiliate U clients about all the time, the value of not having limited memberships is right there. Because you just said to Carolyn, we don't know how much you're going to come in. And now, granted, with an unlimited membership, you don't know. But I know it's more. I need you more than 2 days. So when we sell that,
You're so good at that, Hans.
go ahead, talk about that briefly, because that is.
There's
affiliate
so
owners-
many layers to the question.
I was there when a drop-in came in and how she handled it.
Well, I'd love to hear it.
And it was beautiful. Remember the guy wanted to come in and he wanted just to like check it out and drop in for a day to see how the gym was. And you're like, there's no way I'm going to allow that. I need you to have the experience. I need more than just.
If you want to drop in, and if you want to drop in and you want to experience a class, you can. You're paying for like there's no free trial because like I don't know.
You don't have to go there, but we get it.
There's too much to go into.
But talk about the limited versus.
But so we don't have unlimited membership. You can choose. If you go on vacation, it's 0, but it's 2, 3, 4, or 5. So far, we don't do 6 because people need to rest.
Right.
Go take your nap. Like I want you to sleep.
I'm now programming naps at our gym.
Pardon?
I'm programming naps at our gym from now on.
You should.
No, just for me.
It's harder to get people to sleep than to work out. Like people want to work out more. So that's why I capped it at 5. Even though we're open Monday to Saturday, you could come and train 6 days a week. I know that most people can't recover from that. If we have that conversation, perfect. I will make you a membership. But otherwise, I'm not doing that. It's 2 to 5. So I don't know, but as an owner, as a coach, you should know when you come in, you're coming twice a week. When you come in 3, you're doing 4, you're doing 5. And then I can rotate my programming to make sure. I look at how many people come in on the Monday versus the Tuesday. And I'm trying, people are going to be consistent usually in their training days when you implement that system because, you know, they're going to play volleyball or hockey or they have other activities.
Hockey.
So I know.
Canada, hockey.
I know when people are coming, so I make sure I'll rotate the strength days, the long workouts, the short workouts. But there's 2 things to add to that if we're talking about the 6 to 9 minutes. People need to understand, and the athletes need to be smart. They need to know how to scale, because what's the purpose of scaling? It's to make sure that you and I are going at the same intensity. Once you pass that 9-minute mark, we're not doing the same workout. We're not doing the same intensity. So the coaches need to be smart. The athletes need to learn how to scale to make sure they're hitting the proper stimulus. And if I want to make sure that they don't fail, I can just program an AMRAP and stick it in the 8-minute. And then and you can go slower or faster, but I know everybody's going at 8 minutes. And again, if they scale the movements, ideally you're moving at that intensity that I want you to move with the capacity and the ability that you do have, but we're all going to hit that same time domain. So there's different ways of doing it. You do have to take the time to look at everything, but it's doable.
That is, but what you just outlined is what good coaches do, which is
Because it's a job.
Right,
Yes.
it's a job.
But
And like you said, it's also an art, which if you're going to master any art, that takes reps. Like she
Yeah.
clearly has reps. And the things that she's talking about, those are all things that you learn after doing
Yes.
it 10,000 times. You're
So
like, oh,
few
I
affiliate owners.
But because
are
I
doing
failed
that.
over and over and over and over again, and that's the other thing
Correct.
with my coaches, I'm like, I will give them 8 minutes of box ups and wall balls, and it's like, you build your class. What's the tech? Like, what are we learning? Do you want them to practice their power
Right.
cleans? Do you want them to practice a skill? Do you want to improve their squat because we're going to be working on wall balls? So you're going to decide, like, the people who come at 6 a.m. are always coming at 6 a.m. My coach at 6 a.m. will do their own lesson plans because you know what those people need.
Right.
If you know there's going to be handstand walk program later in the week, maybe my 6 a.m. needs to be doing handstand walk. Maybe my 5:30 doesn't. Like I have Olympians and ex-gymnasts and things like that. Like maybe we need to work on something else. Like my coaches have ownership of their class and I expect them. Now I also then have fun and all program stuff that I want everybody to do. But there's a level there of balancing of like, you need to learn to figure it out for yourself. I'm here to help. If they have questions, like they ask me, like, what would you do in this situation? That, and it's a learning process for everybody involved, me, them, athletes, like everybody. But you also have to be willing to let people fail and learn.
Oh, that was a good point.
The last thing
people fail.
Yeah. Hey, Fern, is it too late to hire her instead of Pat? Because I feel like we got a bad.
still got
We can work together.
No.
team.
Well,
Team.
we're going to Canada. We're
Hand
gonna-
hug. Hand hug. You know how to hand hug? There you go. There's a hand hug. There you go.
Does anybody have a
lied.
question for Mr. Hinshaw?
Anybody want to ask you a question? You guys can ask a question. So you're like kind of putting your hand up? No? All right. Just had an itch on your face? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to start implementing the cooldowns into my classes, but I feel like it's just taking people a long time to kind of like adjust to it because they're used to just sitting there. So I lose like half my class because they're like, I gotta go or whatever. So how do I really draw them in? Because I'm still learning the benefit and trying to explain it, but I'm like still getting my bearings on it. So what would be your best suggestion to get the buy-in on the cooldowns?
Great question.
That's a great question.
So in order to get the buy-in and the cool downs, they're going to do some amount of time of nothing after a Metcon. Some amount of time. And so what the key is that you've got to allow them to catch their breath. So the first thing that I would do after a Metcon is I would make sure that we're not following the fundamentals of CrossFit, which is constantly varied. We constantly vary to keep the body guessing. But the area that we don't want to do constantly varied is our recovery protocol. CrossFit is now recognizing that intervals are a way to create a higher level of intensity. It was highly frowned upon back in our day, right? And that's why I'm so grateful for Pat to defend what we were doing, because I can give you some rest and make you go harder and longer amount of time. The more time you spend at that intensity, the greater adaptation. So that's big. So what you want to do is you want to teach them after a Metcon, you've got 30 seconds of total time. Now, what do? I am so tired of seeing the elite level athletes go down into an isometric squat that they think that this actually is the best way to clear fatigue. Imagine you're doing legless rope climbs and you decide, I'm just going to hold here before I touch the ground, and this is my way of recovering. There is no difference, but we see it all the
Is that
time.
not a good idea?
I'll let you know. I'll let you know when I can get to the top.
So what we want to teach is, okay, so then what is the optimal way? What you want to do in any recovery protocol is the first thing, get control of your breathing. So you'll see a lot of athletes just start shaking, but you hear them hyperventilating. Their demand for oxygen is exceeding what they can supply. The reason why their muscles are burning on fire is because they're starved of oxygen. So no amount of shaking helps until you get control of the breath. So teach them, slow down the breathing, allow the heart rate to drop. Find your recovery protocol. Is it sitting on the ground? I always find it interesting. Athletes will sit in an isometric squat in the middle of the workout, and at the end of the workout, they lay on the ground. Why aren't they at the end doing the squat if it's so good? Maybe sitting on the ground is better for you. find yours. Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? Whatever it is, get control of your breathing. Number 2, what you need to teach them is keep moving. Remember, it's your slow twitch fibers that consume that lactate and the acidity. When the slow twitch fibers see this lactate, it grabs that lactate as a fuel source to help them move. And when those slow twitch fibers take that lactate and consume it, it will take the fatigue-causing properties and remove it from the body. Haley Adams was the coolest one on earth because this is what she would do. She would be sitting after she got her breath and she'd just be moving so slightly, but it was enough to help the slow twitch fibers continue to clear fatigue. Because remember, the purpose of that recovery is to put you in a better position for the next interval.
That's what I do too.
The last piece that you want to do is get the brain in charge. What am I doing next? Am I approaching a barbell? Where's the pedal on the bike? What leg is going to hit that pedal, right? How am I doing those things? So get control of the breath, then keep moving at an easy pace, think slow twitch, and then the last few seconds, get the brain involved. That's for the first 30 seconds after a Metcon. Now, you know that they're going to sit there for at least another 90 seconds past that. What I want you to recognize is that that is the sweetest opportunity for you to capture the intensity and fatigue that you just built up and created in that Metcon. We're just calling it recovery. That 90-second period after the 30 seconds is critical because their heart rate is going to continue to fall. After 90 seconds, it's reached a level that no longer has value. So what you would have to do is hop on a piece of cardio equipment to bump it back up. So here's the kicker. If you have done a hard Metcon, more than likely this lactic acid is in the bloodstream. Well, is your fatigue in a movement limiting your ability to do more work? Meaning, if I ask you guys all, simple question, think about the movement of a push-up, and now your goal is to do 10 more. What is preventing you from doing 10 more? Is it your strength? Do you need to work on your bench press? Or is it that I just get tired? If you tell me it's tired, then what do I work on? Do I give you more volume? Do I give you more intensity? Or do I focus on your recovery? Most cases, a CrossFitter, they're limited because they get tired. So what do? That 90 seconds, because that lactic acid is in the bloodstream, you could do anything. So if I was a coach, what I would do is write 3 movements on the board and tell my member to pick. That way they own part of the workout that you just wrote. It could be a floor press with the PVC pipe, nice and slow. All right? Those muscle groups in that floor press are going to pull that lactate out of the blood, consume that lactate, and take the fatigue-causing properties with it. So you could do anything. It's the concept that Usain Bolt does. A running sprint, and he doesn't just sit in a chair. If you sit in a chair and do nothing, your adaptation is nothing. You need to walk. After the walk, I want you to jog. So you could pick 3 movements for that 90 seconds. The reason why 90 is your heart rate's dropped too low. All right? The optimal and fastest way to clear lactic acid is just below your maximum sustainable pace. The problem is after Metcon, can't do it.
Yeah, I can't do it.
All right? That's the protocol. Tell them why. And what I'm doing is going to target your limitation. Do you just get tired? So then why are we working on intensity all the time if it's your recovery that's limiting performance? Put the stimulus that creates the limitation.
So just say that to them.
So that's
Did
what
you
I was
record
going to
that?
say.
Did you record
Say
that?
We'll cut that
nothing
for
of
you.
that.
We'll cut that.
So I want to address the buy-in issue because we, as coaches, will have
Can we
the
just
knowledge.
get her name and affiliate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eva, cool.
Yeah,
So
Eva
Eva.
from CrossFit Contrivance, affiliate you, Jim.
That's
In terms of the buy-in, there's 2 things you can do. The fun aspect, we're all here to have fun. So if you were saying like people tend to want to leave or it might be time issue, but ideally you make it fun. So by giving people 3 options, now they're in control and ideally they're going to pick something that they actually want to improve. So now you're getting buy-in, ideally they're not leaving. The second thing is if they are leaving, let them leave. Don't try to fight it because the people who stay are going to have the results. And in 4 weeks, 8 weeks, and 12 weeks, those people are going to be performing better. And at some point, the other people are going to be looking around and being like, well, how come you're all fitter all of a sudden? Like, what?
She's so
Don't
good.
fight
That's
with
good.
people.
Peer pressure's a thing.
that's
Peer pressure is the thing. If you get people result, the rest will follow.
That's a
so
knowledge
focus
bomb.
on the people that are listening to you and are going to improve because the faster you make them improve, the faster everybody else is going to start listening to you.
My follow-up question to that, though, is when you're picking movements, like, do you let them just pick the movement, or do you pick a complementary movement to what you did,
That's a
or
good
a
question.
redundant movement to what you just did? Or
That's a good question.
She's good this one.
So let's just say you're doing Karen, which okay, let's just say that
150 wall balls.
you ran out of ideas and that's what you picked.
All right, let's just do this 150 times.
What do people do during Karen in the recovery?
I lay down.
They do nothing.
More wall ball.
And so maybe what you do as a coach is you reframe Karen. And what you're going to do is allow them some time to rest because they're going to need the rest. But what you want to do is when they've built up that fatigue by doing their set of reps, what you're going to do is tell them what I want you to think about is this. I want you to do some very slow active recovery air squats. I want you, because you just accumulated a substantial amount of fatigue, we call that lactic acid. This acidity is what's going to cause the damage. If you don't get rid of it, they're going to be forced to stop. So what you want to do is you want to teach them this concept of moving slowly so that you could help clear this fatigue. So you're going to do some very slow, and you could just say, what I want is every time you break, you owe me 15 seconds of air squats as slow as you want to go. The goal is to keep the slow twitch fibers firing so that they can help remove that accumulation of fatigue. Then take whatever rest you want and then go back in. But every time you break, you owe me 15 seconds of very slow. It's not based upon quantity, because if you tell them quantity, they'll bust them out. You're trying to go slow to keep the slow twitch fibers firing. So you build this in as a coach. I tell you, you're going to do 100 push-ups. You can't do them unbroken. What I want you to do is every time you break, flip over on your back and just do a floor press nice and slow. Same movement pattern, but your intent changes. I'm trying to recover. I want you to recognize you're going to create fatigue in a set of motor units, a set of muscle groups, right? By using fast twitch muscle fibers. It's going to build up and be at that highest concentration there. So you want to do a movement that mimics the one that just created fatigue, because you're trying to work on the clearance where the highest amount of concentration is.
I've heard you describe that pacing as like an all-day pace. You have to be able to. If I want you to move as fast as if I asked you to do this for 24 hours,
Right.
that's how fast you would.
You could go as slow as you want. The only rule is no stopping.
No stopping. Yeah, yeah.
And you always do it based upon time, because CrossFitters always think faster is better. So if you did it on reps, they'll bust out your air squats, and that's not the purpose.
Well, you did that with us when we did it with the sandbags. We had the heavy one, and then we had the really,
You did
really.
Fraser's workout.
We did the
the
medicine
D-ball.
ball.
Oh, the medicine ball.
The
thing,
D-ball
right.
and the med ball.
Yeah, so D-ball and a med ball, and it was just like, hey,
Did
just
I
do the
beat
same.
Fraser on that?
You sure did.
Yeah, dude.
You sure did. Rich saw it too. Gave a nod.
That was a discussion. He was like, wow.
Yeah.
He doesn't like me or Fraser.
Yeah.
Too soon.
You had mentioned it before we hit record, but like, where do you see? So we were kind of mentioning like zone 1, zone 2. Where do you think that falls in from a programming standpoint?
Zone 2.
Yeah.
So you have to recognize that zone 2 is base building, foundation. And if you don't have a big foundation, then how can you build your tower? A tower is what we've been talking about, VO2 max, right? Your maximal aerobic capacity. I mean, we talk about this in my seminar, that think of Mount Everest, right? Mount Everest, it's 29,000 feet. So sitting up on top of Mount Everest is your maximum ability to move and utilize oxygen, right? Your aerobic capacity, your VO2. So that sits at top. Down below is your base camp. What you're trying to do is create a wide platform so that you can create better stability in your intensity. If you don't have a base and you have a very tall tower, now there's risk of always getting hurt. You're going to absolutely plateau in that place. Why? Because you can't just shove more intensity in. Eventually, you're going to get tired. And it is your base that creates the balance, right? Remember, in Everest, it's 29,000 feet. At 26,000 feet is the death zone. 26,000. Camp 4 is just below death zone. That doesn't mean you can't summit. Of course you can. But there's insufficient oxygen above the 26,000. You will die. You got to race time and get back down below. Death zone is lactate threshold, your maximum sustainable pace. All right. High intensity is above that line. Low intensity is below it. If you keep shoving in high intensity, eventually you're going to tap. Why? Because what sits below is what we call recovery. Eventually you're going to get tired. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to find a better balance in your overall training program. Every movement has a weakness. It's either what's above the line or what's below the line. Do you need more speed, more strength, more power, more fast twitch, more anaerobic training? Or do Do you need better stamina, better slow twitch, better endurance, better zone 2, a bigger platform? Because what we're interested in is creating a broad, wide platform and a tall tower and maximizing surface area of our triangle.
So on that note, from a programming standpoint, at running the gym, where would I fit that in? Would I, if I was going to do a very high intensity workout, would I want to do some zone 2 before, or would I put that on the back end, meaning like get my warm up in, we do a Fran, and then once everybody's cooled down, we're going to do 20
But Caroline
minutes
said
of
that
zone,
earlier. She
yeah,
says
zone
she
2.
does 5x5 back squat and she'll make you row 500 meters in 3 minutes.
Got it. Okay.
It would be a standalone for me.
You would
like-
just
Yeah.
do zone
Or
2 then.
standalone.
So that would
and
be
that's really, that's the
considered
question
zone
I'm
2.
asking is like, where do you start to weave this
So
in?
I think that, for example, hero workouts, the really long ones, was a way to get people to go long.
Right.
Because you can't go
Can't go
fast
super
and hard
fast.
for 60 minutes,
Right.
right? So, again, to Glassman's credit, like, you have to do it, and you should do it as a standalone. You can put more in and trick people, because if you're only coming in twice a week, I still want you to hit that zone, so we can do it in a warm-up, we can do it as a cool-down, we can plug it in other ways, but it should be every so often, and you decide based on your population when and how often you're going to put those into your programming, where you are going for a 30-minute AMRAP, a 45-minute AMRAP. If you can scale properly and your people know how to do it, like, do you want to do a 50-minute workout? And everybody has to be done, and like everybody does Murph once a year. Like,
Right.
can we do it more often? Like,
Right.
just in terms of that time domain, like, we should be able to go a little bit longer more often.
Yeah,
Do you
we try to do at least 1 or 2 30 plus a month at the gym.
Is that enough?
Let's talk about this zone 2 since you guys bring it
Well,
up.
I think it's become a buzzword.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is nice, right? So, like, you remember early on how we got really picked apart by doing pacing workouts. And I always found it interesting that 3 years after that, CrossFit partnered, right? And I like that CrossFit recognized the value in what we were doing. I think that's cool. I find it interesting and I love it that the zone 2 is being discussed, but is it being done correctly? And that's the key is that you're being recommended by a coach, but is that coach actually making you worse in that recommendation because they're not informed?
What would that look like? What would worse look like?
So let's just say, first of all, and this is one of the things and the reason why Jeff did 7 VO2 tests to precisely know where his zone 2 heart rate is. So there is a number, but you can use
It's not like 185 minus.
180 minus your age is
Yeah.
a decent
Yeah.
one, Maffetones, but it's just a guess.
Yeah.
It's a guess unless you get tested, and that's what makes Jeff special is he realizes
So what's his heart? What's his zone 2?
we don't
heart
talk about that.
I don't.
Oh,
Come
we
on.
can't. It's a secret, really?
It's top secret.
Big
dude.
guess.
No, we don't talk about it. It's 180 minus his age.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? He's 20.
Hold on, I'm
Do
not
the
great at
math.
math. Someone.
So what you want to do is if you don't want to get an aerobic capacity test, right, a metabolic test, then what you have to do is you have to use a formula. But recognize that's just a guess. Okay?
But
so
the average affiliate, we're not going to be.
180
doing
minus your age,
Yeah,
ballpark
yeah,
it.
yeah.
180 minus your age is
Good.
easy.
It's
right?
good enough.
And
Good
Jeff,
enough.
And
what,
so-
what was Jeff's?
His easy
Not even
pace.
close.
His easy pace is a heart rate of 54.
Yeah.
That's like if
Okay,
I'm
so
sleeping, I'm at
you
54.
come on, don't bite that bait. So what you have to think about is that and here's the deal. In my opinion, you have to be able to do 20 minutes unbroken. If you can't do 20 minutes unbroken, your structure is not sound enough to take on the pounding of high intensity. Eventually, it's going to break down. So what I'm looking for is continuous movement at easy pace for 20 minutes. And if you could do that, you're safe enough to move forward.
Any movement, though.
Any movement. I would like to see you be able to move for 20 minutes. Because let's face it,
He can't do anything for 20 minutes.
no, but I would allow you to walk.
Walk. I can walk for 20.
Okay,
I think.
so here's the deal.
I think so.
You come to me and you want to do zone 2. So how old are you?
44.
Okay,
45.
so let's say
45.
so
Had a
you're
birthday. You didn't send
all
me
right. So
anything,
let's just say
obviously.
you're 50, right? So for math's
How
sake,
did, how did we get to 50?
because
45 is a pretty round
because
number.
Jason, I know the truth. I know the truth. So 180 minus 50, your target then would be 130.
130.
All
All
right.
right.
So you're going to do 20-minute run.
Hold on.
Zone 2.
I'm at 134 right now. Is that good?
That's good. I like that you have the right watch. All right, so what's going to be is you're going to do 20 minutes at that target, right? 130. So because you're never run before, what's
Gonna
going to happen is
skyrocket.
you're going to have a starting pace. And let's just say for you, it's 10 minutes per mile. You're going to start there and you're going to be at a heart rate of 130, right? But all of a sudden now you're in the middle of that 20 minutes and you're going to start getting tired.
Right.
So I told you zone 2, 130, 130, 130. What's your speed going to do if you have to maintain
Slow
130?
down.
It's going to slow down. And what did you teach yourself to do in that workout?
Slow down.
Slow down.
To slow down. Why would you do that? It's a waste of your time. And that's the mistake. So what do CrossFitters outsmart themselves? They focus on speed, right? Oh, I'm 10-minute mile. I'm going to start out at 130. I'm going to stay at 10. But now I'm tired. But I'm staying at 10 because I got to focus on my speed, what my muscles are doing. What's your heart rate going to do?
It's going to go up.
That's correct. Why? Because you lost the stimulus. You turned a slow twitch, zone 2 recovery endurance workout into a fast twitch workout. Your heart rate started to spike because your slow twitch fibers ran out of stamina. This is the mistake that CrossFitters do. Faster is always better. If you always bail out the slow twitch fiber, remember, you're starting zone 2. Your brain's going to match up that intensity. Remember, your brain recruits your motor units based upon the amount of force. It's an easy pace. So what do? You get a small amount of slow twitch. What are all your other fibers doing? They're resting. These fibers are going to fatigue and fail. The brain's going to shut those off and they're now resting. It recruits new slow twitch fibers. Now you're moving again. It's going to work its way all the way around back to the original slow twitch fibers. But those fibers, because you've never trained this movement, they need more recovery time. They can't go back in and run. They have to rest more. So what you do is you say, oh, don't worry. I got a whole series of fast twitch fibers. You never have to go back in the game again. I'll just recruit my fast because they can bring it home.
It's like what you were saying at the very beginning with the bike.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're fatigued.
That's correct. And now you're in trouble and death's on its way. And CrossFitters think that a higher intensity is better. But you always have to go back, and that's why a coach is important. What's the purpose? It's slow twitch, endurance, muscular stamina, recovery. That's why it's called Zone 2. So you don't want those fast. So now we have a predicament, right? What do? What you have to realize is that you're looking at your heart rate, and you're going to maintain 130. You're going to maintain your speed. You're looking at both of those on your watch. In real time, you're looking at it. And then all of a sudden, what's going to happen is you're going to get tired. Your heart rate's going to start to spike. You now know that that's going to be fast twitch recruitment, and that's a no-no. So when it goes up by 5, I want you to walk. Now, why is walking allowed? What muscle fiber group is being used in a walk?
Same.
Slow twitch.
Slow twitch.
Right. So there's no harm in a walk. We're staying within the targeted muscle fiber group. You're going to walk until it goes 5 below, and now it's time to run again. Your task is to find a speed that you can maintain for the 20 minutes amount of time. You're going to do 2 of those every single week to build up your foundation, to build up your base, so that you can make a higher tower. Now, once you do your 20 minutes, you're going to alternate one of those every week, but there's 2 different formats. We're going to increase first format, duration. You're going to maintain the same pace that you just did. You're going to maintain the same heart rate, but not 20 minutes. We're going to go to 25, right? The elites want to go up to an hour. So when I'm asking a lot, you may never get there, but it's a reasonable amount of time. So you're going to build capacity through that quality of volume. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to focus on intensity in terms of speed. So if, let's say, you handled 10-minute miles for that 20, now I want you to move it to 15 seconds per mile faster. You're now at 9:45. If you go up by 5, you walk. If you go down by 5,
So you hit
you
that
run.
one for 20.
And then you do that, and then what do you think the next is? You go to 9:30, then to
Increase the
9:15.
time.
And that's what I did
Increase
with
the
Rich. Like, Rich had a jog recovery pace back in 2015 of a 10-minute mile. So how do you fix it? You focus on the jog. And now he got down to 7:55, right? By focusing on the targeted stimulus to create the targeted adaptation.
And the challenge here is this is counterintuitive. As I go on and faster, I go faster instead of, oh, no.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Because CrossFitters, it's like, oh, faster is better. Yeah, but you just ruined the intent behind the workout.
Right.
But he did win the game as many times with that 10-minute mile jogging. I'm just going to throw that one out there.
But okay, but I would say that the Rich Froning that competed last year was more fit than the person that won 4 times.
I think I just saw something where
Okay.
he said that he felt that way as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
he would have podiumed last year. He would have podiumed last
I
year.
don't doubt that.
He would have podiumed every year as an individual, and that's
Yeah.
the sport evolves. That's why what Jeff is doing, it's infinitely beyond.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna get some
Yeah, we want to get some questions. from
moderately
some-
rapid fire questions
Yeah.
because Chris is answering, so they're not gonna be rapid fire.
I'm going to be, no.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, so we got David here, and David wants to know what is the difference of something like a C2 versus an Echo bike on the energy systems?
You got to remember, it's about the number of muscle groups being used. All right? So if I have on an Echo bike, how many muscle groups are being used compared to a bike erg?
Twice as many.
Right. So the reason why an Echo bike is more fatiguing is because of the number of muscle groups being used. So that's the main thing, is that your demand for oxygen is really on an Echo bike maximized. It is without question the biggest fatigue generating piece of equipment in existence.
The more muscle groups used, the less we like it.
Correct.
Well, I'll tell you here. Okay,
It's a
here's
direct
something.
correlation.
Here's
This is
something.
causation, actually.
Here is something. Okay, this is where Caroline is. Do you realize that you don't have enough volume of blood in your body to support lactate threshold intensity on an Echo bike? Because there's not
'Cause I'm
enough.
small? Or-
No, but if I give you an extra quart, maybe two extra quarts,
blood dope.
now what you can do is you could push enough oxygen-rich blood to all the muscles. So imagine that you're only fueling your muscles by 80%.
That's why like people would use like EPO and stuff, right? On the tour.
Right. Oxygen is the biggest limiter. Your heart's ability to move oxygen to the
But is that
muscles.
a real statistic? 80% on for the Echo bike? Is that what you said?
I mean, everybody's different. Everybody's different.
They built a machine that humans are not actually supposed to be using in the assault bike.
Fair.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
But that's where Caroline is smart. What ratio of upper body to lower body should you be using?
What is it?
No, she's not talking.
Oh, is that a Jeff thing
that's a
also?
secret.
But
Write
imagine
that
you're
down.
a
We need
coach
to
and
know
don't.
his resting heart rate.
But imagine you're a coach and don't know that answer, and now you're competing against somebody that does.
I bet you most coaches here don't know that.
I don't know that answer.
Well,
You shouldn't have talked about it.
I'm
Sorry.
not saying like a
That's all right.
like a
We still
level
don't have the
three. I'm
answer.
saying,
Now
like,
everybody
even
wants
at
to
that
know.
level, like
I'm sorry.
that's crazy to know.
That's awesome.
How many of you guys know that?
Nobody.
None of
Nobody,
you.
nobody raise your hand. Don't
None of
one of
you.
you raise your hand.
You didn't know. I didn't know.
All right, we got another one.
I just got a really quick
Name
question.
name
for
an
Chris.
affiliate.
Jason Kane, CrossFit 306 in Canada.
Yeah.
Question for Chris. When can I buy your book?
Oh, is that bookstores now? Wait, when's that book coming out?
Yeah, it's interesting. I appreciate that a lot. I've chaptered all my things, and I get asked a lot. That's a good question.
I agree.
We're gonna keep you accountable. We're gonna get that book out.
It seems like a lot of work.
Let's set a goal. What's today?
But I do track all of
Tuesday.
my things. We are putting our course online, and in that course, I'm putting a lot more information that could squeeze into the one-day seminar, like all the research studies, my supporting evidence, and those things. A book seems like a lot.
But I
right
think you
now.
can have a
But
book
it's
of
on
his
my mind.
stories, right? Some of the stories with athletes.
I just think you're such a wealth of knowledge.
Agreed.
That you're.
Thank you, man. I
What you've
appreciate
actually
that.
done for the community over the last 5 to 7 years has been incredible.
Who are you talking to right now? Chris?
Predominantly Chris right now.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But
Yeah,
and I
appreciate
think
that.
Chris, you're like a master class kind of guy too.
Yeah.
Because you're like,
Just
I
talk.
agree, like with what
Yeah.
Jay said. Like we love listening to you talk. So I think a book would be fantastic. But just having your videos and access to you talking.
I
is
try
fantastic.
and give out education all the time. I'm actually doing a class really fun. Speaking of that master class, I'm doing one with Dan Bailey.
Yeah.
And it's called Strength versus Endurance. Strength versus Endurance. And so it's really
Why would you do it with him? He has neither.
because well, or speed versus
Yeah.
endurance.
Big bicep. That's all he's got.
And this masterclass concept is, when I'm talking to Dan, I go, I want it to be controversial. I want you to prove why your approach to speed and strength and power is more value than when I pitch recovery, endurance, and stamina. And he says to me, so can I just start out our presentation by going, would you rather look like that or look like that?
He's got a point.
And I'm like, that's
Fair.
what you need to do.
That's fair.
Come in hot.
When's this? This week?
Yeah, it's over here Friday for affiliates at 9 or Sunday 9:30 in the
We'll
morning.
definitely check that out. We had
Yeah.
another question.
All right, we
for
got
you?
one more question. We got one more.
Northeast, is that Mandy's box?
Yes.
Yeah.
My name's Candace. I just had a quick question as an adaptive athlete dealing with endurance. I have CP, and I know you worked with Steph in the past. Like, is it more of a mental game, do you think, for adaptive athletes to push further along with endurance?
So with Steph, it was so working with athletes with CP was it's a very interesting piece for me because we see fatigue metabolically, we see it muscularly, but what we see in individuals with CP is we see neurological fatigue. So when Steph gets tired, it will take her up to a minute to send the signal from the brain down to, let's say, the movement of running the feet. And that was really a fascinating piece, and it was eye-opening to recognize the brain's involvement in everything that we do. But with Steph, the key was in people, with individuals with CP, it's monitoring their level of intensity and using heart rate to understand that, because there are many cases where the upper body moves better than the lower body. And what we're able to do is hit a higher level of a stimulus by just doing arm-only work. But what is the optimal one based upon what your capabilities are? Because again, what we always say is you want a hard pace, high intensity, you want a moderate intensity, you want an easy intensity. The difficulty is with CP to hit high intensity. And you got to be able to look at your heart rate and which movements allow you to do that.
Well, listen, I would love to do this for the next five days.
I want to ask you a question about Zone 2.
All right, go ahead. Listen, as we're trying to end the show, let's fine. Yeah.
What are some of the most unique?
Wait, we're rolling on.
What are some of the most unique
This is why
modalities
the
you've seen
podcast
people
is
use to hit? I don't want to run. I'm not gonna run.
You're going to walk most of it.
Okay.
No,
I think if I walk, my heart rate would stay at about 100.
Interesting to me about CrossFitters. Why jump into high intensity right away? Why not enjoy being out of shape for a little bit of time?
That's been 45 years.
I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it immensely right now. I'm having the best time of my life.
Take a nap.
But walking would be a little too
At
slow.
this point,
for what
I've
you
learned two
explained.
things. I should take
Maybe
more naps.
No, because I walk.
Okay,
But I don't want to run. Can I just squat for 20 minutes up and down slowly?
You have to remember, so the reason why running is a high value of time is because what do you do during the day? You're not sitting in a rower. You're not sitting on a bike. You have to support your body weight.
It's functional.
That's correct. It's the highest value of time. And so we're talking about efficiency. Everything that Caroline does with Jeff and in her gym, it's about efficiency. So if you want to get better, why are you taking something that's inferior when you could do it?
Did he just tell me I have to run?
Yes. Yeah.
Damn it. I'm going to get Caroline to program for me instead.
She'll tell you the same thing.
Oh, man. Well, we would love to keep doing this. Chris, thank you as always.
I appreciate you guys.
Caroline.
Guest appearance. Pat hopped in here.
What an amazing. These three is like, this might be the Mount Rushmore.
It might be. It is now. It is now.
These three, right here.
Yeah, Chris is going to have his book done by the end of the year, everybody.
You heard that. You heard it here.
Yeah.
Heard it here first. When's your next, what are your seminars this week?
Sunday, you said?
CrossFit wrote me into 12 hours somehow. So,
but you could probably find it online.
Yeah, it's
all here. It's on aerobiccapacity.com.
Yeah.
All of my activations are on there. I was just asked to lead the warm-up for the fun run on Friday at 1:30.
Nice.
That's out at North Park.
That's the 5K, right?
The run starts at 1:30, which is going to be awesome.
Alfredo for that.
Yeah, I'll do that. There you go.
Carb
That'll
load.
do it. You got a carb load.
Awesome.
Come on,
yeah, so
anybody?
Well, yeah. Thank you guys
aerobiccapacity.com and then
CrossFit Wonderland.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
come on.
Don't drop. Well, yeah.
Don't drop in. Yeah. She doesn't want you. She doesn't want
if
you.
you're ever in Canada. Yeah. But thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys.
Jason, thank you. Pat, thank you.
Yeah. Next podcast, 3 p.m. HSN Nicola Coyne.
Nicola Coyne, yeah.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for checking out this episode of the Best Hour of Their Day podcast. We appreciate you listening and choosing to have us help you in your passion for coaching and affiliate ownership. You can find more episodes just like this on all podcast platforms. If you're interested in learning more, you can reach out to us on any social media platforms, or you can visit www.besthouroftheirday.com to book a call. If you found this episode helpful for you, please share it so that we can help other coaches and affiliate owners to help build a bigger and stronger CrossFit community. Thanks for listening.